Hello and welcome coders to the Sky Coding. This is chapter 9 and in this session we will see about administrator type of things and we will see how the things internally work in MySQL. Okay, so we will see that how can we create a user in MySQL because user is a very important thing. Okay, we will see how can we create user, so user change the password of any existing user, and how can we drop the created user or existing users. Okay, and we will also cover grant and revoke privileges to any specific users because that's a very important thing. We will see how can we grant the permission to any user for any database, any table, any specific column. So without wasting any time, let's get started. And mostly we will work on the MySQL command line interface so that your hands-on on command line interface should also be clear. Earlier we are just working on the MySQL workbench, but in this session we will work on the MySQL command line. And let's open the command line interface. Okay, so you have to just search for MySQL command line. This is 8.0 version which I am using, and after that you have to just enter your password which you are just giving while working on the workbench. Okay, so you have to just give your password and after that you have to put enter, then it will just connect with your MySQL server. Okay, so first of all we will see that how can we create a new user, then we will see how can we show the user, then we will see change password and drop user. So for creating a user you have to just write one command, create user. You can give any username. Okay, suppose that I want to give my name as Shivam. Okay, so create user Shivam. After that you have to give the localhost, as I am just working on the localhost, as now I have logged in with the root at the root localhost, but now I have to give Shivam at the rate localhost, and after that you have to use this keyword identified because we have to give the password as well, right? So for that we will just use identified, and after that you have to put the single quote, and after that you have to give the password for your account. So suppose that I am just giving 12345. You will need this password whenever you are just going to log into this user Shivam at the rate localhost. Okay, so for creating a user you have to just simply write this query, create user, your username at the rate localhost identified by password. Okay, so after that you have to simply put the enter, then it will create a user. Okay, so let's do enter and let's see what we are getting. Okay, so let's hit enter. Query okay, 0 rows affected, so it means our user is just successfully created. Okay, so and you can just use if not exist as well. Okay, if there is any another user with the same name, then you can just use this keyword if not exists. Okay, so if there is no any user with this name, then it will just create a new user with this name. Okay, and if any of the other user is having with the Shivam name, then it will just show you the error. Okay, so let's create another user. Let's put sky at the rate localhost and password will be same case, and let's create. Okay, you can use any type of code, you can use this thing or you can use this if not exist for creating any user. So now we have just created the user, and suppose that you want to show the user, see the user, that which user you have created. So for that you can just simply write select user from your database is mysql dot user. Okay, and if you will just give without database name, then it will not work. Okay, you can see no database selected, it is showing. Okay, so you have to just first of all give show databases, and you have to use MySQL database. Okay, this database, because all of the administrator type of things means grant and revoke privileges and your user information is just stored under this MySQL database only. Okay, that's why earlier we are just giving this thing select user from user, we are just giving mysql dot user. MySQL is my database name, so I am just selecting this user from this MySQL database. This is my database name dot user, user is my table name. Okay, so let's run this thing and let's see. Okay, you can see we are getting all of the users. Okay, this is we are working, and this is Shivam we have created, and this is the sky we have created with this if not exist condition. Okay, so this is how you can just create your user. This is just a very simple thing. Okay, so for creating a user we have written these queries. So let's copy these things and let's paste here. Okay, so that I can provide you these queries as well, because I have to provide these queries over my GitHub account. Okay, and if you don't know my GitHub account, so you can just visit to the description box, and you can just download all my scripts which I am just using in the videos. Okay, so you can get from there. Okay? So you can just create a user by this way, and if you want to show the user, then you have to just simply run this query select user from your database name dot schema dot table name. Okay, So this is how you can create a user. And for showing the users, I have just shown you the simple thing. This is the query which you have to run for showing the users. Okay, so let's run this. Our second thing is show the users. Okay, so for showing the users, you have to just run this thing. And if you are just removing this database name, then also it will show you the user, because here we have just used show databases. Now first of all, you have to use the database. Okay, so for that we will just use MySQL database, and now we can just run this thing. That's just this simple thing. Okay, select a stick from user, then it will show you all of the users. Okay, so by this way you can just show the users. Okay, and suppose that you want some any describe any user, so you can just describe the user as well. Okay, okay, you have to just write here describe user. Okay, okay, you have to put the semicolon as it, so you can see it has described all of the information. Okay, let's maximize this thing, then we will see. Okay, you can see describe user, we have just described the user, and you will get all of these things. Okay, select privilege, insert privilege, it is having privilege or not. Okay, you can see all these things. Host is a primary key, user is a primary key, and you can see default and then is there. Okay, so it is not having any privilege. Okay, by default whenever you will create any of the new user, then it will not be having any privileges for any database, for any table, for any store procedure, for proxy. Okay, so you have to just grant the permission. We will see later on that how can we grant the permission. You can see create privilege, it is not having any update privilege. Okay, you will get all of the informations here. Okay, by describing the user. And suppose that you want some any specific information, so you can also get some specific information as well. Suppose that I am just selecting user, and I want host. Okay, and I want account locked. Okay, account locked. Okay, and from user. Okay, I'm just selecting this much information. Okay, as you are selecting the data, as I am just selecting these columns from the user, so you can get the selected information from this thing. Okay, for any of the specific users. Shivam, you can see account is this is the host. Okay, all are working on the local host, and you can see account logged. No. Okay, you can see these account are logged. Okay, and root is not logged. Okay, so you will get these information from here. Okay, and suppose that you want for password expire, you can also check from here account logged comma, and you can just give this column name password underscore expired from user. Okay, I have given the wrong spelling, so let's correct the spelling for password. Okay, PA password expired. So you can see it is password expired or not. So our password is not expired for any of the user. That's why it is showing this thing. Suppose that you want to show any selected user, means on which user you are working. So you can just do this command. So current user. So current user. Okay, what it is saying. Okay, we have to give like this. Okay, this is just a comment I have given. Okay, so for that you have to just write select current user. Okay, select current underscore user, select current underscore user, and you have to use the function. And now you can see I'm just working on the root at the rate localhost. Okay, or you can just simply write this thing select user and paste. Okay, so it will also show you that on which user you are working with. Okay, so it is just selecting that user. Okay, and suppose that you are just logged in. I am just logged in with the root. Okay, I have shown you this thing. Okay, I have just logged in with root. Okay, and suppose that you want to see that on which user you are logged in. So for that you can just run the query. So logged user also you can just let me show you that thing. As you have to just select user, and you have to select host and db, and let's select command from, and this time we will use this database information schema, right? This information schema dot process list, and we will run this. Okay, you can see root it is showing all of these things. We can see there are currently these users are logged in the database, where one is just executing, and rest others are just sleep and daemon methods. Okay, you can see this is just working MySQL, and just all these things are sleep and daemon methods. Okay, So this is how you can just see that show your current logged users. Okay, so now let's move ahead and let's see about change password, that how can we change the password for existing user in MySQL. So for that we have to just write the command. Okay, so first of all we will write our query in the workbench, then we will just copy paste that query from workbench to the command line interface. Okay, by mistake I have closed the MySQL command line. Okay, so let's open again and let's give the password and let's use my database is use MySQL. Okay, database is changed. Okay, so we will paste there. Okay, so for changing the password you have to just simply enter the user and you have to just give the username. Okay, so for that let me just select the user and let's see that how many users we are having. So for that you can just run the queries in the MySQL workbench or you can use the command line interface. Okay, there is no need that you have to work for these users and grant all these permissions from the command line interface. You can work on command line interface or you can work on the workbench. Both are same. Both will work on the MySQL server only. Okay, so let's see the data here. Okay, so let's see the data first. You can see we are having these users. Okay, root Shivam Sky. Okay, so let's change the password for this Sky. So suppose that I want to change the user for Sky, so I will just give here alter user and Sky, and my host is localhost, and after that I have to give here identified as we are just giving while creating that user identified by, and you have to give the new password. Okay, earlier I have given 12345 and now this time let's give 098765. Okay, and after that you have to just execute this. Okay, you can see user is added user is done and you can see 0 rows affected, so it means my password is just changed. Okay, so by this way you can just change the password of any existing user. And now we are left with drop user, that how can we drop the user. So if you want to drop any user, so you can run this query on the command line interface. Okay, let me show you that thing. Let me copy paste here and suppose that I want to just change this password to sky 12345678890. So you can see query okay, 0 rows affected. Okay, so you can work from command line or you can work from workbench. Okay, so let's see how can we drop the user. So for dropping the user you can just write the simple command as you are dropping the table, drop user, and you have to give the username. Suppose that I want to drop Sky, so I will just give local Sky at the rate localhost and it will just drop. So before dropping let me select all of the users, select user from user. Okay, so you can see we are having these users Sky Shivam. Okay, so suppose that I want to drop any user. Okay, so I will just write here one query drop user, and suppose that I want to drop Sky. Okay, Sky at the rate localhost. So you will run and you can see query okay, 0 rows affected. And now let's see how many users we are having. You can see earlier we are having these users Sky, but we have dropped the Sky from the Sky user from the users, so you can see Sky is dropped. Okay, so by this way you can just drop any user. So this is how you can just create a user, show users, and change the password of user and drop a user. So that's a very simple thing. So we have seen all things about user: create, show, change password, and drop user. So now we will see that how can we grant and revoke privileges of a user, because that's a very important thing. Because whenever we will by default create any of the user, then it will be not that user will not be having any of the permission to access the database, tables, procedures, functions, or proxies. Okay, so we have to just grant the permission to any of the user. First of all we will grant the permission to any of the user, then we will just revoke the permission. We will see that thing. Okay, so suppose that there is a user, we have just created user. Okay, so let me show you here, select user from user. Okay, it is giving this error. Okay, so let's give database name as well. Okay, so let's run this and you can see we are having this Shivam user. Okay, and we will just see first of all that how many permissions this Shivam user is having. So for that for checking the permission, that how many permission it is having, so you have to just write so grants for, and you have to give the username. Okay, so grants for Shivam, and after that you have to give your host. Okay, local host, and you have to run this, then it will show how many permissions this user is having. So it is just having usage permissions. Okay, so suppose that you want to give the permission to this user. Okay, so this is for checking grants. Okay, you can check the grants. Okay, suppose that you want to grant the permission to this user, means first of all we will grant all the permissions means we will grant all the permissions for database, tables, and columns. We use the store procedure, functions, proxy. First of all, we will grant all of the permission to this user. Then we will see these things specifically for select update. Okay, so for granting all permissions, for all grants. Okay, for granting all permissions, all let's give here all privileges. Okay, privileges, for granting all privileges to new user, because I have already told you whenever you will create any user, then by default that user will not be having any permission. Okay, so for that you have to write grant all privileges. Okay, grant all privileges. Okay, let's correct the spelling for privileges. Grant all privileges on and asterisk dot asterisk and to, and after that you have to give your username. So for to which user you want to grant permission. I want to grant permission to this Shivam. Okay, so Shivam at the rate localhost. I want to grant permission to this user. Okay, so then we will execute this, and you can see our query runs successfully. And now if you will check here, show grants, then you can see we are having this permission, grant, select, insert, update. Okay, we are having all of that permission. We can select the database, we can edit the database, we can insert the new column to the data, a new column to any table, or we are having all of the permissions for store procedure, functions, whatever things are present in MySQL server. We are having all permissions because we have used here grant all privileges on asterisk dot asterisk to Shivam, this user. Okay, so this user is having all of the permission now. Okay, and suppose that you want some any specific privilege, so you can give like this way as well, like specific privileges. Okay, let's correct the spelling for specific. For giving specific privileges, you have to just write grant, and suppose that I want to grant permission for creating, selecting, and insert. Okay, I want to give these permissions only on all of the things, asterisk dot asterisk to, and my username is Shivam at the rate localhost. Okay, so this time this user will be having these permissions only: create, select, insert. Okay, this cannot this user cannot update the data, it is not having update permission. Okay, and if you will check here in this thing, you can see here we are having all the permissions, select, insert. You can see here we are having all the permissions: update, delete, create, drop, reload, shutdown, process, index, all permissions. Okay, this time we are just giving create, select, insert up. Okay, so you can see grant successfully, and we will check the grants. Okay, you can see we are having these. Okay, earlier we have given all of the permissions, that's why it is just showing that thing. Okay, we will see how can we revoke the permission so as well, then we will better understand. Okay, so for granting all permissions, you have to write the query like this way. For granting any specific permission, create, select, insert, update, you have to write this query, and you have to just flush the privileges as well. Flush the privileges, let me write, then we will explain. Okay, flush privileges. Okay, why we are giving the flush privilege? Because flush privilege statement we are just giving after executing an update statement for reloading all privileges from the grant table of the MySQL database. Okay, so that's why we are just giving flush privileges. Okay, we have just given this thing flush privileges, and you can just use this thing for showing the grants for any of the user. Okay, so suppose that this is for all things, that how can we grant the permission for all the databases, and suppose that you want to grant the permission for any specific database. Okay, so let's write here for this was for all databases in MySQL, and suppose that you want to grant the permission for a specific database. Okay, so for a specific database, what you have to do is you have to write the query grant all privileges, on, suppose that you want to grant permission for this chapter 8 database. Okay, so chapter 8 database, you have to write this thing. Okay, and suppose that I want all permissions. Okay, to, and my username is Shivam at the rate localhost, and you have to run this. You can see, and now if you will just run this for checking grants, let's copy the thing, let's paste here, and let's run this. You can see it is having the privilege for accessing this chapter 8 database as well. You can see it is showing here. Okay, so by this way you can just grant the permission to any user to use any specific database, And suppose that for table as well, you can use for any specific table, so that that user can use that specific table only. So for that you have to just write, suppose that I want delete only. Okay, you can just give delete. Okay, suppose that I want this user to give the permission to delete for any table deletes. So I will just give like this way, grant delete on, and my database name is chapter 08. Okay, grant delete on chapter 082, and my user is, I want to give the permission to this user, local host. Okay, and you will run this. Okay, but it is on table chapter 08. Okay, you have to give here chapter 08, it is my database name. Okay, and suppose that I want to delete grant permission for this employee table, so I have to give that table name as well. Okay, I forgot to give the table name. Okay, so you have to run this. Okay, you can see now our this user is having to delete the data from this employee table. Okay, this is my database name and this is my table name. Okay, so if you will check grant here, you can see it is having the permission for to delete on this employee table. You can see here it is showing. Okay, for deleting the data. Okay, for from the employee table. Okay, so this user is having this permission. Okay, so you can give any specific table permission as well. And suppose that you want to grant the permission for any stored procedure, stored procedure or function. Okay, so you can give like this way as well. So for that you have to write the query like this way, grant execute on function. Okay, on function, and now you have to give your function. Suppose that my function name is sky function. Okay, so I will just write like this way, and after that you have to give your username, shivam @localhost, and you have to run this. Okay, as now I am not having any function because we have not covered store procedure and function. We will cover later on, then we will understand this thing. Meanwhile, just understand the query, that how we have to write the query for granting the permission. Okay, so if you will run this, you can see sky function is not active because we have not created any function with this name. Okay, we will understand this store procedure and function briefly in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so by this way you can grant the permissions to any of the user for any specific database. Okay, we have seen this thing for granting the permission for all databases. Okay, and this by this we can check the grants for any user. Okay, and you have to the flush the privileges, because whenever you will create the user, you will change the password. Okay, then you have to flush the privileges to refresh. And for a specific database you can give permission like this way. For any specific table to the user, you can give the grant to like this way, and for procedures and function. Okay, now we have seen all of the grants. Now we will see that how can we revoke the privileges. Okay, so for revoking the privileges, this is just a simple thing. Okay, for revoking all the privileges, suppose that I want to revoke all the privileges, revoke all. So for that you have to write the query, revoke all grant option from, and my username is shivam @localhost. Okay, so if you will check it. Okay, for checking, first of all let's check how many permissions we are having in this. Okay, so let's run this and let's see. We are having this this for all, and after that we have created this thing. After that we have given this permission for this specific database, and after that we have given this employee table deletion permission. Okay, so I want to remove all of the grants from this user. Okay, so for that I have to run this. Okay, earlier what we have done, we have grant all the permission, grant all privileges. Okay, we have granted all the privileges to this user, and now I want to revoke all the privileges from this user. So you have to write the query like this way, revoke all grant option from shivam @localhost. This is my user. Okay, so you have to run this, and let's see the action output. You can see it is just run successfully, and now if you will check here, you can see we are not having any of the permissions. Now we are not having any of the grants because all of the grants is just revoked. Okay, earlier when I have checked this thing, by default this was having, this is just for every user. Okay, for usage permission is having every user. But okay, so now all of the grants which I have given, a grant delete, grant for function, grant for any specific database. Okay, and grant select for any data, grant all permissions we have granted, and now we have run this, so all of the permissions are revoked from this user. Okay, so this is how you can just revoke all of the permissions from any of the user. Okay, and suppose that you want to revoke any specific permission from the user. Okay, so you can do like that way as well. So for that we will just grant some permission to this user, as our this user is not having any of the permission. Okay, let's me check here. Okay, so this user is not having any of the permission. Okay, so if you want to give any revoke any specific permission, means you want to revoke select, insert, update only. As here we have revoked all. I want to revoke only select permission, select and update grant. So how can we do that thing? So for that, first of all, let me grant some permission to this user. Okay, so for granting the permission, we will just write grant select update, select update, insert on, and I will just use this database chapter 08 dot chapter, okay, chapter 0 date, only database only. I will not use table. Okay, uh, this and all of the tables. Okay, 2, and my username is Sivam @ local host. Okay, so I'm granting the permission. Okay, what it is in illegal privilege select. Okay, let's correct the spelling for select. Okay, it is just run successfully, and let's see the grants. So this is having this grant select, insert, update on this chapter 8. Okay, chapter 8 database. Okay, so I will just suppose that I have just given these grants only, select, update, insert, and I want to revoke only these selected grants from this user. So how can we revoke this thing? So for that you have to just write this thing, revoke, and I want to just suppose that I want to just revoke update, and I want to revoke insert. Okay, up on, and my database name is chapter 08, chapter 08, and we want all. So from my database name. Okay, from my username. Okay, so you have to use from my username is Sivam @local host. Okay, so it will just grant revoke all of these update and insert permission from this user. Okay, so first of all, let me show you the grants. As you can see here, we are having select, insert, update on, select, insert, update, and if you will just revoke all. Okay, sorry guys, by mistake I have just revoked all of the permissions. Okay, so let's give again all the permissions, and let me show you the things. Okay, here we are having select, insert, update on permission, and now what we will do, we will just revoke insert and update. So let's run this. You can see it has run successfully, and now if you will see here, you can see we are having just only select permission. Okay, you can see here we are having only select on permission. Okay, because we have just revoked update and insert grant from this user. Earlier we have given select, update, insert 3 grants for this user. Now we have revoked update and insert. So this user is just having select. Okay, select grant. You can see select is having. Okay, so this is how you can grant and revoke all of the permissions from the users. Okay, so that's all for today's session, and from the next session we will start the keys, that is unique key, foreign key, composite key, and the primary key. Okay, that's a very important thing. Keys are very important. Okay, so that's all for today, and we have covered all of the users. How can we create the user, show user, change password, drop user, and how can we grant and revoke the privileges from the users. Okay, you can use these queries on the MySQL workbench, or you can just use the same queries on the MySQL command line interface as well. Okay, so that's all for today's session, and if you face any type of doubt, then you can just ask me. And this thing we basically use as a on a admin type of things whenever we will work on the big data. Okay, and whenever we will work on the real-time project, then we need these things. So for if you are working on the multiple enterprise edition, then we will be needing these things. Okay, so that's why I thought to create a video on this user and grant and revoke privileges. Okay, so that's all for today's session. Bye, take care of yourself, guys.